Hi yogis, here's a quick addendum for those, if there are any, who are interested in my own metrics. Okay, so this is on wearables for health, what you get out of your smartwatch. First of all, I've just written them down, and I have 7 or 8 metrics. 7 usually, but then 8 is one that I will sometimes check. Metrics that I sort of keep an eye on. The first one I've been over with you guys. It is the activity minutes in Garmin, and I make sure I get 300 minutes per week. Easy peasy. There were a couple of weeks I didn't make that last year, a couple of weeks each year, and for one reason or another. But pretty much every week I get that 300 minutes, and most years I'm up around 400, 500, 600 minutes a week. I would say before the kids came, it was a lot more than that. But the last 4 years with kids, it's been a bit less, of course. So that's why it's about 500 minutes per year. Okay, so number 2 is sleep. I like to get a medium-term average of 7.5 hours a night, and I find that's good for me. If I drift down to 7, I start getting a little bit tired at the end of the day. Less than that, I start forgetting things. But yeah, 7.5 hours is good for me. And there are weeks when I get a lot more than that. Okay. Next one I have is HRV, heart rate variability. As I said in the last video, I've sideloaded a EKG into the watch, and you can just download that as an app, and it doesn't cost much, $4 a year or something. And I only look at that occasionally if I'm a little worried that I'm overtrained or underslept or slightly tired, or if I've had a cold or something. And if my personal HRV drops below 65, then I switch my focus to resting more, training less. So just taking it easy. Okay. Next up, VO2 max. I will only use VO2 max when I'm running a lot. So when I'm running at least once a week, better if I'm running twice a week. Because otherwise what happens is by not running, Garmin depreciates my VO2 max. So I might look at it and it's gone from 47 down to 44. And then I'll go for a run and Garmin will say, congratulations, you've increased your VO2 max. And then I won't run for a few weeks, it'll depreciate down to 40, and then I'll run again, it'll push it back up. So it's not really accurate unless you run a lot. And part of that is because I don't have a power meter on my bike or my bike trainer. Yeah, so when I'm running, I use VO2 max, but not otherwise. And then there are some non-watch-based metrics that I like to keep an eye on. So number 1 is body fat. I like to keep that under 13 kilos. Okay, so that's just a specific metric for me. That's probably about 15% body fat, that limit. But not much less than that, around that mark. I like. If I get too skinny, then I tend to get sick in winter. In summer, I don't mind. I can let myself get a bit skinny. Okay. And then next, number 6, lean mass. I like to keep it over 63 kilograms of lean body mass. And here I'm actually not meeting my metric when we came back from the last India trip. It was a very long trip, and I'd lost a few kilos, and I just haven't put that on yet. But yeah, I'll do that sometime. Sometime. Not too worried about these metrics. See. Next one, blood pressure. I like to keep my systolic blood pressure under 130. I know this because when I tested my blood pressure for the Helsekurvan from the government, it was 130, and I thought, oh, that's not so good. Healthy is 120 and below, and I remember when I was a kid, it was always 110. So I do check that occasionally, and just before this, I checked my blood pressure, and it was, what was it? I've written it down. It was 124 over 70. Yeah, so it's in good shape. How do I check it? I just have a cuff and a stethoscope that I've had for a really long time. Cheap ones from again. They're great. While I'm doing show and tell, if you look just behind over my shoulder, that is the scales that I use for my body fat and muscle mass. Not super accurate, but accurate enough. And in order to make sure I've adjusted the settings so that they get about right. And in order to calibrate them, I use body fat calipers and I do a 7-point check just to calibrate the scales. I'm not going to do a caliper measurement on myself. That's just a waste of time. I don't have time for that. Okay, last measurement I do, and this is because of congenital anemia that I've had my whole life. Well, since I was about 17, got diagnosed. Okay, and that is I just check my hemoglobin and I make sure I keep that over 130. And I check that as well in my little machine. It checks that. And yeah, I was totally fine. It was really high today, 153. But I think it's actually because I'm a little bit dehydrated today. So it always gets pushed up whenever I'm dehydrated. All right. So that was a little silly addendum. If anyone's interested in what my metrics are, not so relevant to you probably, but it's not really something I think about. I maybe check the Garmin once every week or two, and I'll check my blood pressure maybe once a quarter or less, 3 times a year, and hemoglobin only if I'm fainting a bit, if I'm feeling dizzy or weak, and that's probably twice a year. As for weighing myself on the scales to check the body fat and muscle mass, again, 4 times a year maybe. Not much at all. Yeah, that's it. All right, yogis. I'll see you on the mat. Bye.